LeSean McCoy, going into his 11th season, he's 31 years old. He was a top 7 running back 2 straight years before an awful 2018, 514 rushing yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Now, Damian Williams, in our recent Fantasy Football Today PPR draft, he was taken 28th overall. Now, when would you take Damien Williams, and how about LeSean McCoy?
I'm going to have a hard time taking Damien Williams in the first 4 rounds, to be honest.
Whoa.
And I don't know that LeSean McCoy has much left. I just don't know that it matters. Damien Williams, before last year, was an absolute nobody. This situation in Kansas City is so perfect. We know the connection that McCoy has with Andy Reid in the past. We know that LeSean McCoy just got more money guaranteed for this year than Damien Williams did on his 2-year extension. I can't feel comfortable with Williams as anywhere close to a feature back. I still have him projected for 190 touches, 185 touches this season. That's one of the lowest marks for any running back that you'll see in my top 24. He's still there in PPR. I really have a lot of concern about Damien Williams in non-PPR because this addition does, you don't give $3 million to a guy that was your star running back just a couple of years ago for Andy Reid.
Look, you know how when you do an auction and you've got like $8 left at the end and you spend all 8 on a $1 player and everybody goes, you spent $8 on that guy? You're like, no, listen, just how the auction worked out. The season's about to start. They don't need their cap space. It's a 1-year deal. He's 31. He might be washed up. Not in the first 4 rounds. That feels a little harsh.
Yeah, I think like we'll see his ADP probably settle right around 40, 45.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm just definitely not in non-PPR. I'm just not going to take him there. And then
Fair.
in PPR, you start looking at all those young wide receivers that we are really, really excited about, and they all get elevated in that format.
You mean like Lockett, Godwin,
Yes.
Galladay? Okay, so if we just look at running backs with Damien Williams, would you take Mark Ingram, Tevin Coleman, Damian Williams? How would you rank them?
I would take Ingram, I would take Coleman in either format, and they're a couple spots ahead of them. I think they're going to get, both those guys are in good offenses for running backs, not great offenses. I think they're going to get more touches than Williams. Now, the problem is the uncertainty surrounding this situation and most of the ones we're going to talk about. Like, we haven't really even heard press conferences about these additions. We haven't heard coaches talk about these players very much. The perception could change a lot before we get to Thursday and the season opens. But as of right now, that's at my initial kind of first look. Williams is still a top 30 guy. McCoy is a top 40 guy. That, listen, would it be that surprising if LeSean McCoy gets 12 to 15 touches in this offense and all of a sudden he's must start?
No, there's already been one report that he is going to get, a good amount of work, LeSean McCoy. And for Damian Williams, the catches were really big for him. But the last 6 games of his season, including 2 postseason games, that's when Williams really took off. And he averaged 12.8 carries per game. That's 205 per 16 games, but only 1 game with more than 13 carries. He had a 25-carry game that really boosted it. Usually he was around 11 to 13 carries. So, I mean, that's just not that many. So I see your point. All right, does McCoy basically replace Darwin Thompson in draft boards now?
I think he'll go a little bit earlier, quite possibly. Now, maybe where Darwin Thompson went the last week and a half, because he crept up into the 8th round. I even saw him go in the 7th round of one draft, which was crazy even before LeSean McCoy signed. This is devastating to his value. Strictly from a projection standpoint, I can't project Darwin Thompson as someone you should draft. You're still drafting him because of the upside, because of the talent that we saw that flashed in the preseason, and because it's this Chiefs offense. And if he does get the job at some point, then yeah, you can be excited about it. But this ruins Darwin Thompson.
Okay, so now let's go over to the Buffalo Bills. And sticking with the Chiefs in a way, let's rank Damien Williams, LeSean McCoy, Devin Singletary.
Damien Williams is on another level from those two, in my opinion. I'll still take Williams ahead of both. I actually, in both my Week 1 rankings and in my season-long rankings, have McCoy and Singletary back-to-back. And I have McCoy 1 spot ahead. And it's really difficult to argue like who has more upside, because McCoy looked like a slug last year. He's 31 years old. We're not sure how good he is anymore, but he's in the Kansas City offense. Like, that just gives you auto upside.
But does he need Damian Williams to get hurt?
I don't know. We'd have to ask Andy Reid that.
I don't think many people are going to take LeSean McCoy over Devin Singletary. Based on the feedback, the reaction I've seen this weekend,
yes,
you're going to be in the minority there.
Absolutely. And I think the thing is, I don't necessarily think that I'm going to have McCoy a lot higher than where he's going to be drafted. I think he'll be drafted in the 8th or 9th round. I think he should be maybe 7th, but 8th round is about where I'd put him. Singletary, I expect his ADP just jumped into the top 5 or 6 rounds, and I'm just not sure that's where it should be. They still have Frank Gore, who tried to kill Kenyon Drake's value last year. It's still a situation that's not great for a pass-catching running back. And as far as I can tell, they still got T.J. Yeldon on the roster, and T.J. Yeldon's actually a good pass-catching running back. So I think it could still be a slow start to the season. Like, are you going to feel comfortable week 1 starting Devin Singletary? I don't think you can.
No, probably not, but against the Jets. But I'm certainly not going to feel good starting LeSean McCoy, maybe even Darwin Thompson, that game at Jacksonville.
You can't start Darwin Thompson at all.
I'm sorry, Damien Williams. But, it's just funny because I did the Saturday night radio show that we have on CBS Sports Radio last night. I did a podcast with Ben Gretsch. I talked to Jamie on the radio show. I did a podcast this morning with Dave Richard. And it just seems like they're going to be very different opinions about these situations. Dave, for example, is over the moon about Devin Singletary. He's really excited about Devin Singletary. My take on Singletary is start of this season, I don't think he's going to be a reliable starter. But they get rid of LeSean McCoy. That, to me, says they're in on a youth movement here. And they know that Frank Gore is not going to be carrying them to an unlikely playoff berth. But I think that they could realistically think about a wild card. I mean, you might disagree, but if they like Josh Allen,
if you would just take the word realistically out of that, they could be thinking about a playoff.
So I think let the kid play. Frank Gore is old and washed up. He's 36.
He was last year.
Yeah, so they're not as dumb as the Dolphins. I hope.
But there were people that made that decision to give the ball to Frank Gore.
Yeah, but they're not on this team. That was a different franchise. So what I'm saying is it's going to be a little bit slow, like we see with a lot of rookie running backs, like we saw with Kerryon Johnson last year. It just takes a little time for them to get that feature work. But I think second half of the season, and hopefully even earlier than that, I think Devin Singletary is getting a lot of work, including some catches, because that's what he's been doing in the preseason. So I'm excited about him. I just think you got to be a little bit patient.
You do have to be a little bit patient. I can't say that I'm excited. I'd be fine with, I moved him well up my draft board. I'm fine with him in the 7th or 8th round.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get him there.
The name that keeps coming up is Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders or Devin Singletary?
I think you have to go with Sanders.
I think that's such an easy call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sanders is more talented. Sanders is on a better team that's going to score a lot more points. I don't know that Jordan Howard's going to be that much more of a threat than Frank Gore, who seemingly always ends up being the guy getting the touches.
Darius Geis or Singletary?
I'm going to have to stick with Geis.
All right. Let's go to the Houston Texans. So they get Carlos Hyde from Kansas City. They get Kenny Stills and Laramie Tunsil from Miami. They ship out Jadeveon Clowney in what's obviously being panned as a really poor miscalculation by the Texans, but whatever. So how does Hyde factor in now? And would you take Carlos Hyde or LeSean McCoy?
I would definitely take LeSean McCoy over Carlos Hyde. I don't believe that Carlos Hyde, this is a very good fit for him. It's a good fit in that he can do the thing they're not going to have Duke Johnson do, run into the back of the offensive lineman on first down. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to make guys miss in the backfield. And there are going to be defensive players in the backfield almost every time Carlos Hyde touches the ball.
You think it's that bad of a line?
It's not that.
They just got Laramie Tunsil.
It's not a good offensive line,
yeah,
for sure.
They're going to have probably 2 rookies playing big roles.
I do think Hyde has a chance to vulture some touchdowns from Duke Johnson. But this is a team over the last 3 or 4 years that doesn't get a lot of rushing touchdowns. So that doesn't add a lot to his value. This was only a small ding for me in Duke Johnson's value. We knew they were going to add someone to the backfield. I didn't like the fact that they decided to trade one of their pieces for a running back and not just pick someone up off the scrap heap, but they've made pretty bad trade decisions all weekend long. So I'm not going to act like this win actually means something.
Not only that, but this team runs the ball a lot under Bill O'Brien. So there are a lot of carries to go around. Duke Johnson has never had more than 104 carries. I will ballpark 150.
I've got him projected for 163. So that was a good ballpark.
How many catches?
45.
I think even if Carlos Hyde leads the team in carries, Duke Johnson is going to be so much more valuable. I mean, that's obvious.
Yes.
Is Duke Johnson better than Devin Singletary?
Definitely for me.
How about Damien Williams?
I don't think he will be. They're really close, both in PPR and in non-PPR. And I wouldn't it's possible that Duke Johnson touches the ball more than Damien Williams does this year. I don't feel like there's a situation where Carlos Hyde comes into Houston and they love him and they're impressed by him, and all of a sudden he's getting 250 touches and just their feature back, and Duke Johnson's what he was when Lamar Miller was there. I have this queasy feeling that there's an outside chance with Andy Reid's affection for LeSean McCoy that he says, you know what, LeSean McCoy's an all-pro running back. We're going to give him the ball 15 times. And not that McCoy holds on to that job because he's good, but just that the job is so fantastic that he looks good in the role, and it just crushes Damien Williams. That's not what I'm projecting. That's not what I expect. But there's more of a chance for that to happen with McCoy than there is with Hyde.